join. Okay. Okay. Let's wait a couple minutes for them to join. Okay, here we go. Devarim. So this etc. is the beginning of the Sefer Devarim, and as is common, the Sefer is usually called Al Shem, the first parsha in the Sefer, which is Devarim, and the first pasuk in the Sefer says as follows: Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe. Second. Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe al Kol Yisrael be'eva Yadei b'midbar v'arova me'asuf be'impol v'tevel v'lo m'chaseos v'di zahav. So it's an interesting pasuk because it's the opening line for basically the entire Sefer Devarim. For example, in other Sfarim like Bereshis, starts with Bereshis Bara Elokim B'Shemaim V'Soras. Bereshis is the beginning, basically telling us about Master Bereshis. Although some may argue, which may be what Rashi may have been intending to say in the first pasuk, that Rashi asks, why did the Torah have to start with Chodesh Hazelachem? Why didn't the Torah start with the Chodesh Hazelachem? If the Torah is meant to be a guide of how we connect to Hashem, then surely the focus is on the mitzvahs, and the first mitzvah is of Chodesh Hazelachem, and therefore that's where the Torah should have started. It says Rashi, b'shem his father, as Kibbutz Av, the opening line is basically, opening act as it were, is what he heard from his father. So Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, he said, which was his father, that what it's teaching us is that, quite frankly, yes, the Torah should have started Chodesh Hazelachem, but there will come a time where the nations of the world will doubt our claim to Eretz Yisrael. This hasn't been any more true in past years than it's been today, for sure. And so therefore the Torah starts with Bereshis to tell us the history of what happened before before HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, Bereshis is an introduction, basically, to the rest of the Torah, because massive amount of the mitzvahs are connected to Eretz Yisrael in themselves. So, Mehechatei, that we would have the right to be in Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it has to start with the parts of Sefer Bereshis, and really Bereshis in its entirety is Bereshis, is the Bereshis of the beforehand. And Shemais, all of the different Sfarim, it's not for nothing that, and it's not out of convenience that they are called by the first word, because the first word is also encapsulates the entire rest of the content of the entire Sefer. So Bereshis encapsulates the entire content of the Sefer Bereshis, because the idea is Bereshis in the beginning, before the first mitzvahs were given. This is what happened, as in before Klal Yisrael became a nation. This is what happened. Or B'Shvil Yisrael Shnei Bereshis, and then it goes through the steps. And the same thing is with Shemais and Vayikra and Midbar and Devarim. We're not to discuss those particular things, but it's an important introduction to Sefer Devarim, because the opening pasuk seems to be quite interesting. It says, these are the words. Which words? The entirety of Sefer Devarim are the words which Moshe spoke to Klal Yisrael. Says the Noam Elimelech, V'nakdim, and let's start Lefarish HaPasuk to explain the pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk in Tehillim says as follows: Nu oizer likim al Yisrael gavosai ve'ozoi v'ashchokem. So there's this pasuk in Tehillim. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. Tehillim to actually read out the pasuk because it's not brought down in the Sefer itself. Samachas Lamed Hey. Go. Tenu oiz alikim al Yisrael gavosei ve'oz b'ashchokem. Tenu oiz alikim. Oiz usually means strength, force, passion, even more like, because it comes also from Azaz, so it's a very strong, unabashed force. Elikim, give it to God. Direct this power that you have towards Hashem, or attribute this power to Hashem, saying that this comes from Hashem. Al Yisrael Gavosoi, on Klal Yisrael is visible HaKadosh Baruch Hu's grandeur, v'ozoi b'ashchokim, and again this expression of immense power, ozoi b'ashchokim, in the heavens. Okay, seems it's a quite general but at the same time cryptic pasuk. So what does this mean? How the two parts of this pasuk connected? Fine, they speak about the words ois, but it seems that in their meaning they are not connected. They shouldn't follow one or the other, says that Noam Elimelech. However, kvar hikdamnu v'kasavnu shahatzadik al yedei ma'asav hakdoshim yochel levatel kol hagzeres miYisrael. We've already spoken about this before, that tzaddik, through his good deeds, through his holy deeds, through his very focused, positively focused deeds that he does, he can annul every single bad decree that comes with Klal Yisrael. The tzaddik can annul with the things that he does, the things that he thinks, the things that he speaks. He particularly refers to the actions of the tzaddik. And to bring down to the shefa, instead of having exadin, instead of having a difficult time, he can bring down to them a reality which is a pleasant and positive one, instead of the calamity they may be facing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu basically listens to the tzaddik, as it were, and he says, yes, this is what I will do. And the Berachos, the Gemara says that the entire world was created only in order to connect with this one. Tzeves means to connect, mitzvah means connection. Tzeves was there to connect to this one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol is saying that I've created the entire world with everything that has happened before this tzaddik has come along, in order so that I should be connected to this tzaddik. How is HaKadosh Baruch Hu connected to the tzaddik? Well, the tzaddik is creating his connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through doing the mitzvahs, through doing the maasim tovim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu in turn is creating the connection by attentively listening and keeping that connection alive with the will of the tzaddik, by enacting what the tzaddik is trying to achieve for the klal. Just skip the line. The entire world is created in order to have a connection with Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Zeh. So when the Gemara says the entire world was only created in order to have a connection to this. What's this? This is Hashem, because Zeh means Hashem. Zeh, referring to Hashem, Keli ve'avehu. So Zeh is Hashem. Just like we've written before, that the tzaddik is goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. What does that mean? What does that mean? How do all these parts fit together now? So let's go over it again. The Noam Elimelech said that he introduced the pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk in Tehillim, he said, seems not to have any connection. He then brought down the concept of a tzaddik through his actions. It's interesting he says through his actions, through his holy actions, he can upturn an entire gezerah, an evil decree on the community, and then not only annul it, but also bring down good shefa for the entire community. And the Noam Elimelech brings out the Gemara and explains that the only point that the world was created is all to create a connection. So the tzaddik is creating his connection to Hashem. Thereby, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, when he created this world, was that people should connect to him. That it should come from within. It's an awakening from below, an awakening from this world, to each person active as opposed to reactive. Our connection to Hashem should not be a reactive connection. Unfortunately, what happens when there isn't an active connection from our own part, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates circumstances which create a reactive connection, that we either experience something which isn't great, and therefore react to Hashem by crying to Him. And sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu will create a good situation for us, and it will at the end of the day might be a better way, but it's still reactive. And so as much as a person may think that Hashem is bestowing good upon him by giving him good, yes, of course it's better than the alternative, but at the end of the day, let's not forget, this is also a situation where your connection to Hashem is reactive rather than active. And it's on us, almost, to, in times, I guess if there was such a thing, in neutral times, and let's say, for argument's sake, to reach out to Hashem. If there's no reason, you're just sitting on your couch, you've done whatever you need to do for the day, and you come home and you've got nothing to do. That is basically kind of a moment in time where you have the opportunity of having an active connection from yourself, rather than reactive. One may even argue that davening, Shacharis, Mincha, and Marav, the connection that people create, albeit very special and requiring a lot of effort to achieve, is also still a reactive connection, because it doesn't get awakened by the person themselves. Meaning, they're in shul and they're davening and they're saying karbanos or ashrei or vedi veshman esra, wherever they're holding, and they switch it on. It's a level of active because they are switching it on, but it's also because of the situation where they're in that now they feel that they need to activate this. But halavaya, we should be zeicha just to have reactive connection to Hashem all the time. In any case, says the Noam Elimelech, "Efshalem ashazeh kivnu gam kain chazal mitchila olam machshava levarim midasadin." So he says that it could be that it was also the intention when Chazal said the following memoir, which I think is a medrash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he wanted to create the world, using the Midas Hadin. And he saw that the world would not be able to continue to exist, because din is strict judgment. And so if the world is created with strict judgment, then it wouldn't take long before somebody would come along and maybe anger Hashem, and strict judgment would require the person to be immediately punished on the spot. Alternatively, for their, let's say, even if everybody was doing everything right, and it got to the point where this first person, not Rishon, I guess in this case, let's say he wasn't chayte by eating from the Eitz Hadas, and he had children, and we're talking about now, say, 20 decades later, 2 centuries later, and now suddenly somebody has an idea to do something bad. Even just the idea of doing something bad, they get struck down immediately, because strict judgment requires you to have absolute, total awareness of Hashem. And therefore, it's very possible that people might turn around and they'll say, well, what happened to this guy? Why did he just get struck? And people might start panicking. But even if that weren't the case, and people would be able to see that the person has actually done a sin, and then he gets punished as he does the sin, or after the sin, or whatever it is, then free will is taken away, because no one's under any illusion that if I don't follow what Hashem says, that I will be punished. And now you have a world where you can only have a relationship with Hashem from Yira, as Yira Sa'inish, which is the lower form of Yira, as opposed to the higher form, which is more like fear of disappointment, or whatever higher form might be, but not the lower form of just fear of punishment. But in any case, such a world doesn't allow for a connection of ahava, a connection of love with Hashem. It only allows a connection of fear. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to add the midah of rachamim, of mercy, to engage with the world in a constant flux of judgment and mercy. Or rather, not a flux really, but a constant partnership of judgment and mercy. Justice and mercy. And he said earlier on already, the first ones, so talking about not the Rishonim, but talking about Noam and Amiroim, those that first had learned about this memory, they said, how can this be? There is no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a constant. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for example, time doesn't pass for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a linear way like it does for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above time. This doesn't exist. So this concept of there being first he wants to do this and then he did this, that doesn't really translate in the reality of what we know about Hashem. And he doesn't say that, he doesn't discuss what the answer is, but he goes to approach now. The Elimelech goes to approach his own answer, attempted an answer. The Gemara says that there are 3 partners in creating every human being. They are the father, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the father and the mother. So in the Pashat Pshat, it means quite practically. A father and a mother, they have a child, but this child does not have any life without HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving the child life. And even the parents wouldn't be there without Hashem being the first cause. So, but he goes to explain it now on a different level, a more esoteric and deeper meaning. And he says the following: sometimes the word av is not used literally, sometimes it's used figuratively. So in the case of a tzaddik is called an av, a tzaddik is called a father. Elisha, who was the student of Eliyahu Hanavi, he called Eliyahu Hanavi Avi, my father. The imoi, and the concept of a mother, Hainu Knesset Yisrael, hi Ashchena. There's a concept called Knesset Yisrael, which in its loose translation means the assembly of Klal Yisrael, or the entirety of Klal Yisrael all together, as difficult as it is to understand that. And this concept of the entirety of Klal Yisrael is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's expression in this world as Shchinte. Shchinte is a feminine force, and what it means is a feminine force is that it usually is used to describe a receiving relationship as opposed to kudsha brichu. So those that will say, for example, Hashem Yichud at least once or if not more times a day, for putting on talis and tefillin, Baruch Shama, etc., will be familiar with the words Hashem Yichud kudsha brichu u'shechinte. Now, myself included, very often we say this very fast and without much intent and meaning. But quite frankly, if we pause for a second and try and see what does this mean, in order to unify HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Shechina, what does that mean? Well, we once discussed this before. There are many different ways of trying to understand this again. We are using words to explain something which cannot be explained in our everyday life, but perhaps we can get some glimpse by understanding the following. There is the potential and there is the action, or the reality. When we do a mitzvah, the idea behind the mitzvah is there is a thought and there is an act. Now, when I think and I want to do something, I have the will to do something, so I'm wanting to do it, and then I do it. What I connect the potential to do it and the reality. So I bring it out and I create that connection. Kudsha Barichu, in that sense, is the infinite potential. Shchinte is the infinite expression within this world. It can also be expressed infinitely. And so therefore, when I am doing this, I am, as it were, allowing for potential to become reality, and therefore also giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas ruach by doing His will. So His will, are the mitzvahs. I do the mitzvah, then I am now actualizing potential. And that, in a very, very superficial, simple sense, is an understanding of the Hashem Yichud. But bringing it here, the concept of Knesset Yisrael being the Shechina, is all of us together, we are all expressions, we are all different, and our differences are expressions of the infinite potential. And it's up to us to use those differences as tools to shed a different meaning, different light, different way of doing things, in a way that it brings a complete expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. So every Yid, in his way, if he acts in a certain way, will bring an expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will by doing mitzvah in a certain way. But it's not a complete expression because he is he and he is not the other, and the other is not her, and she is not somebody else. What I'm trying to say is that each and every one of us, we are all different, whether we're twins or not, or whether we look completely different, we come from completely different backgrounds and countries. But the fact of the matter is that each one of us, when we do a certain act, it will be something entirely different. And therefore, when you take Knesset Yisrael as the group, as the collective, and let's say you give one mitzvah to every single Yid, when we all do the mitzvahs, and we all do it with all of ourselves, it will be the ultimate form of expression. The idea of one circle, one connection, in order to do the will of Hashem, that is the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Malchus in this world. Coming back to this point, when it talks about an aim, it talks about Knesset Yisrael, which is the Shechina. The concept is that the father gives the loven, which is the white, the tzaddik himself, in the sense of the tzaddik being the av. What does it mean in this scenario where we are now transposing? So we are basically now using av Hashem hamushal. It's called the Shem Hamushal Shem Hatzah. Shem Hatzah is the name for the thing itself. So an av is a father. Now, even though the father, the physical father in this world, is a Shem HaMushal vis-a-vis HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the father with a capital F. Nonetheless, in our everyday life, Shem HaTorah is a father is somebody who is a father to children. But now the Shem HaMushal is given to the tzaddik, where the tzaddik is now borrowing this term of av. Now, how is he borrowing? If he's going to borrow this term, then there must be something which is true for the Shem Atayah, and also in a similar form true for the Shem Mushal. So the tzaddik has to be acting like a father. How is the tzaddik acting like a father, particularly when it comes to the relationship of the av and the aim and Kodesh Baruch Hu in creating life? The white that we're talking about in terms of the tzaddik is that he whitens the sins of the tzibur, and thereby, meaning he intercedes on their behalf, and the predicament is only as a result of the sins. So if we look at it now from a linear perspective, and the tzibur is in decline, their level is in decline, and it reaches this low point, and now there's Gzar Din, and the tzaddik is aware, and now tzaddik basically does this action which he invests his all into it. He would not have done that if not for the Gzar Din, which would not have come about if not for the Avonos. So, in a certain sense, these things are only coming, the tzaddik's actions are only coming about because of the Avonos of the tzibur. And also, obviously, the tzaddik will be a sanega, have been advocate for the tzibur and say, look, they are good and they've done this and they've done that and they've done the other. They're having a bad time or whatever, however the tzaddik is doing this. The shechina itself, which is the aim, is called racham, is called mercy. The idea is as follows: with the tzaddik, now, through his actions, helping to whiten the sins of the tzibur, and the aim, which is Knesset Yisrael, which is rachamim, which is mercy, together. His will was that. What does that mean? Even though the world was created in Mitzadin, what the Kodesh Baruch Hu had done is, if I understand the Noam Elimelech correctly, he's saying that the concept of the father, is such that he is considered to be din, judgment. The mother is considered to be rachamim. So, if we transpose this to Master Bereshis, when Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, he wants to create the world with din. He then partnered up, so to speak, din partnered up with rachamim, in order to allow the world to exist as it existed afterwards. And so therefore it wasn't a question of he only wanted it to be with din. He always wanted it to be din and rachamim together, because that is the ebb and flow that you need to create life in the world. There always has to be a giver and a receiver. There always has to be an infinite potential, but within the confines to express itself. That is just how the world is. Because if not, then the constriction would not even allow for any expansion, and there would be nothing. So you have to allow the room for expansion, which is chesed, which is rachamim, which is infinite. But then it also has to be with din. They have to be together. And that was the intention all along. And therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu, by giving permission as well to the tzaddik to be able to create that difference in the world, והסור של למעשה באש, שיהיה יוכל להפך הדין לרחמים, tzedkosav v'tfilosav v'nimsa sheniach adavachim kodem. And this was always the intention from the beginning. He always wanted the tzaddik to come and intervene, and that is why he allowed him that ability to do so. This is what v'shotfai partnered up means. Koy ala tzaddik. This is going on the tzaddik. She'aso Hashem Yisbarach shutaf b'zeh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made this tzaddik a partner. She'yeh yochel lahamtik adinim lahapcham rachamim gemurim. So that he should be able to change it to absolute rachamim. And therefore when it says shutaf midas rachamim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu partnered midas rachamim. What does that mean? It means that he partnered up with a tzaddik who will awaken the rachamim, and therefore allow for a gzadin to be adverted. It was all happening in one fell swoop. How is the tzaddik sweetening the strict judgment? When the tzaddik fights against things that are holding him back. So with his challenges, and he fights against these challenges, so he used Gevura he fights the force with his own force and he pushes it down. Another word for din is Gevura. The concept of Chesed and Gevura, which are Avraham and Yitzchak. They are each the embodiment of Chesed. Avraham Avinu had an infinite amount of love for each and every person. That's why it was so difficult for him to send away Hagar and Ishmael. Whereas when it came to Yitzchak was more midas of Gevura. And therefore you don't particularly find Yitzchak Avinu going out so much to try and associate with as many people as possible, like Avraham Avinu did. It was more constricted. And focusing on expressing what there is rather than acquiring what there isn't, in order to then express what there will be then. Tzaddik needs to go up and up and up to the point where it gets to the dinim. So he needs to fight and he needs to work through his challenges. And by exerting this amount of force, he's able to sweeten these dinim. Everything needs to be comparable. In order to be victorious in battle, you need to actually get up, and if you need to fight. The concept of a warrior is somebody who is stronger than the opposing force. This Mishnah says, so it talks about on Shabbos, if there's a war, and people need to basically now carry on Shabbos, but they need to, the reason why they're carrying their weapons is in order to save somebody else, not just to go and conquer land. So they are allowed to go back to where they came from. That's what the Gemara there says. So now the Elimelech is going to take this on a more Jewish Remez side level, and he's going to say the following. It says all their weapons in their hands. What does it mean, all their weapons in their hands? So obviously it means whatever they left with, they come back with. But he says that this is what it means on a higher level. These warriors, these tzaddik warriors, they go out and they fight in order to Klal Yisrael should have in order the calamity should not befall Klal Yisrael, and therefore they're fighting against the strict judgment. They need to go to where they find the source of this din, and they find it and they uproot it. And all their weapons in their hands. What does that mean here in this case? What it means is that every single challenge that they've overcome, which creates a weapon, it shows that they have the ability to do more and to do more. So for example, with a sword you can do things that you can't do with a bow and arrow, and with a bow and arrow you can do things you can't do with a sword, and with both of them there are things that you can do which you can't do with a spear, and there are things that you can do with a spear that you can't do with each of them, and so forth and so forth. So what that means in terms of challenges is that each challenge will awaken something, an aspect of of a power that a person has, the potential that he wasn't aware of before. And therefore, they need to come with all of those challenges and everything that they've gained, and they need to come to this place, to this awareness, to this consciousness, in this very high reality that they've now come to in their own way. Again, I'm just translating the words and I'm trying to gain a glimmer of what we're talking about, but I hope you bear with me. And the Akash Baruch Hu wants them to do this. He wants them to do this and come and to actually uproot the judgment. There's a Gemara which says that my children have vanquished me, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu saying with a smile, what it means to say is that Hakadosh Baruch Hu purposefully wants, or at least shows that he wants to do something because he wants the reaction. He wants Klal Yisrael, he wants the tzaddikim, he wants them to step on the stage and to do what needs to get done. That's what it means that the pleasantness of your right hand is forever, is eternal. These pleasant things are the it's very difficult to translate these words into English, but these pleasant things, which says in Imas Minucha Netzach, they are the forces of victory. When the tzaddik now takes the force behind the judgment and he puts it into rachamim, the splendor and the eternal victory is for the life giver of worlds, which is Hashem. When the tzaddikim do this work, it becomes something beautiful. That's what Balak told to Bilam. He said, "Run to your place. Take I'll give you a counsel." So why did it's quite comical? Balak is annoyed with Bilam, sends him away. And instead of walking away, or at least being quite annoyed with him, he said, I'm going to give you some counsel. How does that make sense? And Rashi explains that Balak, who was the king, was a bigger magician than Bilam the prophet. And in this instance, there was a little bit of Ruach HaKodesh on him. I'll see an appearance of Hashem. Balak said to him, you just run away. Go to your place, he said. He said to Bilam, go to your place of Tumah. Don't stop trying to go to the place of Kedusha and to do something. Just make the place of Tumah stronger and stronger and stronger. Don't try and weaken the place of Kedusha. And that is what he ended up doing. And that's really what was happening. The dynamic between Balak and Bilam. It's unfortunate we don't have time to now finish the second part. Maybe we'll do another session sometime during the week to finish and understand what this original pasuk of Tnu Elikim Ali Gavosoi, which we may now start to understand by way of the tzaddik being this force for power.